My name's Larry Fleece, and I thought I'd share a few of my old bikes with you today.
Tell us about your Enfield here, please.
Well, the Enfield is a 1140cc V-twin, and I bought it down in Texas from another guy that hoarded bikes.
And what year is this again?
It's a 1937.
And when did you get this?
I've had this for about 6 years.
And it's running?
Yeah, it runs fine. The motor did not work right when I got it. The valve guides were broken and the valves were bad. It now has Chevy 307 valves and valve guides in it, but it runs fine. I enjoy riding it.
And here you have a four-cylinder. What can you tell us about this?
Well, this was probably originally sold to the Los Angeles Police Department. It's a 41 Indian 4, and by 41 you had to be somebody special to buy a bike because they were shutting down for military production. And this bike runs fine. It's set for a lot of years, but after playing with the magneto and cleaning the carburetor out, I got it running and I ride it around town here.
How many miles do you have now on this baby?
Oh, let's take a look. 1,800 since it was rebuilt.
Okay. And this looks like the cream of the crop of your collection. Can you tell us about this?
I went to, when I lived in the Midwest, I went to Pleasant Valley, Pennsylvania to buy a Rudge motorcycle. And I drove all the way out there, and I took a friend with me, and I bought the Rudge and brought it back. And then I called the guy, and I said, you know what? His name was Albert. I said, Albert, you had a little Indian in the barn out there. I'd like to buy that. And he gave me a price, so I turned around the next weekend and drove all the way back to Pleasant Valley, Pennsylvania, and bought the little Indian. And the only thing he knew about it was hanging up in a restaurant in Philadelphia on the wall as kind of wall art. When the restaurant went broke, he bought the bike. And I've had it since the early 80s. But we've done a lot of research on it, and we know what the bike is. So on the way back home, my friend said he had a 30 Indian Chief with a cast aluminum tank there. You suppose he would sell that? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll call him and ask him. And he said, yeah, I'll sell it. So we turned out the next weekend, drove all the way back to Pleasant Valley, Pennsylvania, and bought the 30 Chief. That belongs to a friend of mine. And 3 weekends in a row, we made that trip to that guy's house buying motorcycles.
And this is a prototype, the first V-twin Indian.
The very first V-twin Indian, yeah.
So we'll move the camera around over here so everybody can get a good look at it.
Obviously, it's an unrestored original. I have taken the front cylinder off just to give it an inspect, and the inside of the engine looks good.
And a unique feature about this is rather than a speedometer, it has what's like equivalent of a bicycle odometer right here on the hub. And
that's the original peg on the spokes.
Oh, okay.
That turns a little star wheel, and that's what records your mileage. So you have to kind of use a correct tire size, or your mileage gets off, as it rotates.
Are these tires actually in production? Somebody makes these size tires?
Not for this rim. I tried Coker and I tried a few others, and I'll probably, if I ever did restore, I would replace the rims with a clincher rim. But I never could find a tire that would fit this rim.
Are those not clincher rims?
They are, but they have a funny pattern to them. Look at the side of them. They've got like a little double step. And
let's zoom in here. You can see that there. We go kind of see that.
I'd love to have tires for it. I couldn't even find rickshaw tires that would fit it.
Okay.
There's a lot of people been using, tires off of rickshaw in foreign countries, to make them work.
Now here you have a Sammy Pierce Indian. Can you tell us a little bit about Sammy Pierce?
Well, Sammy Pierce, his nickname was Mr. Indian, and he bought up a lot of old stock dealerships when Indian went broke. And he had a lot of parts, and in 1968 he got a manufacturer's license from the state of California, and he made his version of Indians. which was what was ever on the shelf. And this one has the vertical front end on it and a vertical frame, but with a 37-inch Indian engine, which was 30 cubic inch and is bored and stroke now. And, you know, he sold, this is number 44. We believe it to be the last one. So he sold that many bikes in '68, and that was it, 1 year
So we'll
only.
zoom in on this. Oops, Sammy Pierce bike. I have to swing around. Get the camera.
We believe it to be one of three with a one-piece fiberglass tank and seat.
So this is one of three with a fiberglass frame. And is the fender steel?
No, it's fiberglass too.
And fender's also fiberglass. And with that flathead engine.
It actually runs quite well. It moves right down the road pretty good.
What would be the cruising speed on this bike?
I don't know. I never go as fast as...
What do you go at?
I probably ride that bike around 45, 50 miles an hour.
That's a nice clip for that little
Yeah.
guy. It looks just so fun.
And the thing breathes good. It's a good running motorcycle.
Okay. And we see you have a 54 Corvette behind you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your Corvette?
Well, I'm a Corvette fan, and I had a 54 one other time that I never got finished. And I went to look at an old Indian motorcycle, and this Corvette was in the barn, so I wound up buying both of them. And we use the Corvette a lot, my grandson and I.
To this day.
Yeah, we drive
We'll
it to car
swing the
shows
camera
and stuff.
around to look at the Vette. Is that the original color?
No, it was blue.
Blue.
Because blue was the only color you got with a saddle tan interior. But somebody repainted this obviously years ago.
So blue was the only color with a saddle tan interior. This has the Power Glide 2-speed automatic. And that just looks like a fun car.
We have a lot of fun with it. It's a nice little car. It runs good. I don't ever drive it very far, but the local car shows. And it's a popular car. Everybody likes it.
I think everybody loves Corvettes. And they got the drop on the Thunderbird as well. Well, thank you, Larry. We really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. I like sharing